Broadband India Forum. It gives me great pleasure to extend to each of you a very, very warm welcome and good wishes on the occasion of World Wi-Fi. This is a time to celebrate the significant role that Wi-Fi is playing in cities and communities around the world by driving exciting and innovative projects to connect the unconnected. This digital dialogue celebration of World Wi-Fi Day is presented to you by Broadband India Forum and our event partner, Bharat Exhibition. We are privileged to have the valued logo support of the Department of Telecommunications for this event. The knowledge partner for today's digital dialogue celebration is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the IEEE, and the supporting partners for this evening's Wi-Fi celebration are Wireless Broadband Alliance and the Wi-Fi Alliance. My thanks to each and every one of them for their support. It is also my honor to welcome the eminent experts who have joined us today for this session. Thank you for taking the time out. Before we proceed with the formal agenda, let me also announce that in our drive to promote accessibility in the digital communications world, we at the Broadband India Forum had introduced sign language interpreters for all our webinars and events. And therefore, it gives me great pleasure to welcome today Dr. Renuka Rameshan, President of the Association of Sign Language Interpreters of India, and her colleague, Mr. Saurabh Roy, to do the interpretation for this important event. Dr. Renuka Rameshan holds a PhD in social work and is a senior sign language interpreter and trainer with an experience of over 20 years in the field. Currently, she is also an executive member of the International Sign Language Research and Training Center, the ISLRTC. Accompanying her will be Mr. Saurabh Roy, who is a member of the Association of Sign Language Interpreters of India and a freelance sign language interpreter in his own right. He has done his master's in Extension and Development Studies and is proficient in English, Bangla, Indian Sign Language, and the American Sign. The moderator for today's session will be Mr. Manohar Raja, Chairman of Broadband India Forum's Wi-Fi Committee and Executive Director of RailTel. Some housekeeping announcements before we start the session. All speakers are requested to please keep their mics on mute if they are not speaking. Keeping your camera on is a matter of personal choice and convenience, except when speaking, because it's always nice to put a face to the voice. However, in the event of a loss of bandwidth, my personal experience has been that switching off the camera seems to. This event is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the link will be shared with all the participants to revisit and share with your colleagues and friends. Last but not the least, let us be sensitive to time and keep within the allotted slot of time to create a better experience for everyone who is part of this session. With these few announcements out of the way, it is my pleasure to hand over to the moderator for the event, Mr. Manohar Raja, for his introductory remarks and to kindly moderate the rest of the session. But before I hand over, a few words to introduce him. As I said, Mr. Manohar Raja is Chairman of Broadband India Forum's Wi-Fi Committee and an Executive Director with RailTel. He joined the Indian Railway Service of Signal Engineers way back in 1992 and has led several innovative initiatives in RailTel, including the station Wi-Fi, the collaborative broadband model of RailWire, the Railway 139 service, Railway Display Network, content on demand, migrating railways critical communications to LTU and the lieu of GSMR, etc., etc. Manoharji, the floor is.
Thank you, Rajat, for the nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Namaste, and good evening, good morning for those who are on the other side of the planet. TV. I learned that you're also that side. A warm welcome to you all. A year has passed and Wi-Fi continues to give us reasons to celebrate. And as we are trying to normalize our lives from the pandemic and coming back, Wi-Fi continues, Wi-Fi, which was our lifeline during the pandemic, where to sustain our livelihoods and also to cope with our social isolation, Wi-Fi continues to remain our primary portal into the digital world. I can go on about how Wi-Fi can do so many things and how it is going to not only be a bridge to digital divide, but also can be a bridge to experience divide. And also from an environment perspective, it can really be a much greener technology. What I'll do is I'll get out of the way and leave the talking to the experts. We have a panel of very eminent people. We're very fortunate. Thank you. Thanks all of them. Some of them have traveled are joined in from not very convenient times. Thank you for that. We'll go straight away. And our first speaker is Ms. Dorothy. Happy to introduce you, Dorothy. Ms. Dorothy Stanley, we are familiar with her, a very prominent speaker, chair of 802.11 Wi-Fi, IEEE USA. Her work in standards development and industry interoperability programs continue to enable the Wi-Fi industry to innovate and provide disruptive solutions. I really can appreciate how important it is, because when we try to even make small things work together, they seem to fall apart. And I can understand how important it is for you to build an ecosystem which can work together. She has led and contributed to numerous Wi-Fi Alliance task groups, has received outstanding contribution awards from the WFA, and is now serving there. Over to you, Dorothy.
Thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate the welcome and, of course, the opportunity to present on the work going on in the IEEE 802.11 working group. Can you hear my audio okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, excellent. So I believe you have the presentation. Excellent. So in the 10 minutes, and I will be true to the time allocated to me, I'm happy to discuss the current status of an overview of 802 and the 802.11 amendments under development. I'll focus on the current status of 11AX and 11BE, which are the primary MAC and PHY amendments, along with information about their market adoption. And then I'll focus on two new areas that you may not be familiar with of work underway within the working group. On 802.11BB, which is light communications, to get an understanding of what that really is, and some new work going on, particularly one on the use of ambient power in a recently formed topic interest group. These remarks are my own and do not represent an official position of the IEEE. Next slide, please. Our work in the 802.11 working group, we are one of the working groups within IEEE 802, the Landman Standards Organization. And just to give you an overview of all the work going on there, which is of course relevant to the deployment of not only Wi-Fi technologies, but many others. The 802.3 working group, which develops the Ethernet family of standards, and then 802.15, additional wireless standards there. Others are highlighted here. We have a very large and growing membership within the 802.11 working group. Currently, we have over 500 members, the voting members. And meeting remotely and electronically as we have over the past couple of years has really lowered the barrier of entry to people being able to join us. And so that's reflected in the increased number of voters. Additionally, in 802, particularly .11, we do base our standards on the IETF work done, starting at the network layer and above. So our focus is on the MAC and PHY. Next slide. .11BE, when I've spoken before, and as you know, the current standards in the market are based on 11AX, a Wi-Fi 6, and the application of that standard within the 6 gigahertz band, known in the market as Wi-Fi 6E. The improvements in that standard focus in 4 areas: spectral efficiency and area throughput, high density, power saving, always important, even more so now, and outdoor and long range applications. And so to give an idea of just how successful this technology has been in the marketplace, in 2022, it's expected that there'll be over 2.3 billion Wi-Fi 6 devices shipped. This is the biggest ramp of any of the families of MAC-PHY amendments so far. And in addition, there'll be an additional 350 million Wi-Fi 6E devices. This is in 6 gigahertz. And so this 6 gigahertz spectrum is important to the future evolution of Wi-Fi as we look out over the coming years, for a total of almost 4.5 billion devices total of Wi-Fi devices. Next slide. I have one new item here to point you to, but the message and certainly Broadband India Forum is at the forefront of using Wi-Fi networks, deploying them globally to bridge the digital divide and extend both broadband, optical, and wireless backhaul to end users and to consumers and to areas that would not otherwise be reached. In India, of course, Africa, and in the US and in developed countries. The link here, which is, you can look up later, and the graphic is from the Canadian First Nations project, where they have an ongoing government-sponsored program to put in the broadband in these very remote areas. Not unlike what's happening really globally, not just there, but in the US and in India, to provide connectivity, which brings so many important economic developments. Next slide. Wi-Fi 7, which has been announced as the marketing term for 802.11be. 11be is currently under development in the 802.11 working group. We are in the process now of conducting a working group ballot on that document. And this ballot will close July 4th. So hopefully at that point, we will have an approved working group draft that is a solid baseline for development of and implementation of products that is even ongoing as we speak. Next slide. This is an enumeration of some more of the features. I want to highlight 320 megahertz bandwidth, and this is where the 6 gigahertz operation is so important because we have then more of these very wide channels and which provide very high connectivity as well as improved performance for a number of the additional applications that can be overlaid onto a Wi-Fi network, including location and sensing. I'll have more reference to that in a moment. Next slide, please. So I've talked about the main MAC-PHY amendments, and now let's look at light communications and the new topic interest groups that were formed. So briefly here, we have 2 new topic interest groups that were formed in May, just a month ago. The first is on artificial intelligence machine learning and how that can be applied to the .11 working group, .11 standard. We're looking at use cases initially, and then understanding whether there is additional standards work that's needed to enable the use of those technologies. So again, just getting started. If you're interested in that, please do join us. And then the second, which I'll talk a little bit more about, ambient power for IoT. This is a hot topic across many technologies, and it's been an area of research for quite some time in the Wi-Fi arena. Given the really broad applicability of this technology, it could be paired with use in really any spectrum band. There's interest in looking at that. Wi-Fi already has a very good power profile, and so we're looking at always extending that. In the middle here, you see the other amendments under development. Due to the time, I can't go into those in any detail, But please reach out to me if you have questions, or look on the website and join us for finding out more about that. Next slide. 11BB, light communication. So what is this really? My elevator pitch summary here, if we have just a couple moments to describe what this is. This standard is really providing the equivalent of a wireless cable or wireless Ethernet between two endpoints. And the instantiation of that capability is using light spectrum and the existing MAC and PHY capabilities. There are a number of use cases where it's believed this can have applicability, and you see some of the technical capabilities here. The operations are in the 800 to 1000 nanometer band, and you see the throughputs here. The goal is to use light to modulate the data upon and provide this wireless cable application. Now you might ask, well, how does this apply to 802.11? Next slide. Okay, more on use cases. This is the industrial wireless use case. Focus here. So you have an industrial environment, industrial robots. Often this is a very noisy environment for wireless devices. And so using light, you avoid all of that interference. Next slide. Again, the details are here for a later review. Another application would be in medical environments, where in some occasions the use of RF is either restricted or monitored. And so here's a use case where in an operating room you could have this very high-speed communication that's leveraged in the equipment that's there. Next slide. So here, how are we using the existing 802.11 MAC and PHY to enable this light communications? And so the use here is the newly defined light communications link. So you have light communications endpoints that then are connected to existing MAC and PHY implementations. So the MAC and PHY implementations that are leveraged in 11BB are based on 5 and 6 gigahertz. And so you can reuse existing MAC PHY devices and chipsets, which are widely available in the market at very low cost, and build these communication systems that are then built on light. So there's effectively no new development on this back end. This MAC PHY and all the upper layers, this MAC PHY and all its upper layers, and now you're connecting those two endpoints over light. And so this enables many new applications at again, a very appropriate cost point. Next slide. All right. The new area I'd like to highlight is called ambient power, also known in the research area as energy harvesting. There's been a lot of work ongoing over the past several years looking at research and prototype development using Wi-Fi based devices. So back in 2015, you see the reference to some work that was done integrating energy ambient power capabilities with 11AH. Recall that 11AH is the sub 1 gigahertz standard that's defined for very low power operation. So by combining the 11AH based sensors with an energy harvesting scheme, you get even lower power, which is an ongoing goal really across the industry. 2021, some more recent work on low power downlink for IoT. This was using H11 compliant wake up receivers, so wake up radio. This is 11BA. So some of the use cases here, of course, smart home, logistics, warehousing, inventory, industry, wireless network sensors. We have battery limitations and a whole scale of battery power that are used in different applications. And we're really pushing the envelope here to saying, well, you could actually envision a device that has no battery and just obtains power from the energy in the RF that's transmitted in the air. And then how can we use that more effectively in a Wi-Fi system? Again, overlaying a new application on top of an existing deployed system. Next slide, please. This is my last slide in the deck, which I'm sure will be made available to you. The material is here for your further review. There are additional backup slides with more information. The bottom line is that we continue to enhance the 802.11 standard to support even more services and support additional business models. I truly appreciate the work that Broadband India Forum is doing to leverage this technology to bring connectivity to the unconnected at an affordable price point. So our operation is in 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz, as you know. Additionally, sub 1 gigahertz, 11A(H), which is not listed here, but the AH channels that are used is shown in this slide. We support existing and new business models. As I said, we really do base all of the work that's based on this standard delivers significant economic value. There have been numerous studies showing and documenting the economic value provided by Wi-Fi systems. And indeed, during the pandemic times, this was brought home even more strongly as people globally from home had to connect, upgraded their broadband connections, and are using Wi-Fi. And it really, I think, reinforced to regulators the importance of the spectrum and the value that we are making of the spectrum that is available to us to enable economic growth and societal development with the connectivity that's provided and support of all the new services. The final slide here shows the 1200 megahertz available in the 6 gigahertz band, made available in many countries, including the US, Canada, and others, and which is something that we're advocating for going forward in the future. This pictures here for power saving, 20 megahertz use clients, again, reinforce the focus on power saving that we have. And it's really interesting, the breadth of development and activities from new and more throughput with 11BE and lower power use, and to continue to increase the number of applications and devices that can use this technology. So with that, I will conclude my remarks. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them. And again, thank you so much for the invitation and to attend World Wi-Fi Day. And I appreciate that you are celebrating it with this distinguished panel and presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. It's always interesting. You make those most complex plumbing things which make everything work together so simple, and really frontier areas. And that's the reason why Wi-Fi is such a successful standard. I'm amazed to know that the numbers which are getting shipped this year, 2.3 billion Wi-Fi 6, more than 50% of the devices are already Wi-Fi 6, and 350 million 6E devices when even the countries have not decided on the spectrum. That's the kind of confidence the ecosystem has. It's great news. I think I really think that the light communication, the way you organically try to use the existing models with minimum things, I think is super interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we will do the questions at the end of the session. Okay, so we'll go on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. J.R. Wilson, Chairman, Wireless Broadband Alliance and VP Tower Strategy and Roaming, AT&T Services. Wireless Broadband Alliance was founded under his leadership in 2016, and 20th June every year celebrated to be designated as World Wi-Fi Day to celebrate its role in driving affordable, inclusive broadband around the globe. Founder of the WBA Connected City Advisor Board, he has rich experience and expertise, especially in the areas of IoT and satellite broadband. Welcome, sir.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Good evening. Looks like I may have lost my camera, but I fear that the show must go on. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So again, thank you very much. Thank you to the Broadband India Forum. It truly is an honor to be here and speak for a few minutes, especially on World Wi-Fi Day, which is significant importance to me, including personally, since the World Wi-Fi Day was effectively born out of the Wireless Broadband Alliance. I personally invested in it. In fact, it was myself and a board advisor named Reza Jafari a few years ago were sitting at a table, and we were talking about different days that are celebrated around the world, whether it be World Popcorn Day or World Bicycle Day, and thought, well, why isn't there World Wi-Fi Day to celebrate the most cost-effective way that has mobilized the internet and made it available to billions of people? So the Wireless Broadband Alliance, just as a little bit of background for folks that aren't familiar with it, where we really focus is on the customer experience and creating superior customer experience through 3 simple pillars. And that is making Wi-Fi seamless, secure, and interoperable. We are a trade association, effectively a nonprofit. We've got about 170 members, and we've been growing rapidly, including throughout the pandemic. In fact, I would say that the pandemic has only accelerated our charter. Most of the money that we make goes back into projects and programs, including things like establishing the Open Roaming platform. We are in a world where roaming agreements are no longer your traditional bilateral roaming agreements between MNOs or mobile network operators. But with Wi-Fi, there's so many businesses, enterprises, etc., that these networks can be extended to the billions of people around the globe. The Open Roaming platform makes that possible. It makes it simple for companies, businesses to enroll their hotspots through a hub architecture and effectively make them available. There's already over 1 million APs that are part of the Open Roaming platform. So again, the WBA, our goal is to create superior customer experiences. We're globally represented. Our board is very global. We're represented by MNOs, MSOs, handset providers, OEMs, etc. Next slide. I can't see my slides, but hopefully this is the digital divide slide. There's my slides. Sorry about that. If you could go to digital divide, next slide, please. So to celebrate World Wi-Fi Day, I think it's really important that we just ground ourselves on what the charter is. So obviously, so much has been accomplished with Wi-Fi. There's over 500 million Wi-Fi hotspots globally. That's in 2022. There's approximately 18 billion Wi-Fi devices in use around the globe. And for that matter, 50% of the world IP traffic is carried by Wi-Fi. So number one, we want to celebrate the great contribution and innovation that Wi-Fi brings to our daily lives. At the same time, World Wi-Fi Day is as much about the charter to connect the unconnected. And there's some stats here. You can see there's still 1.3 billion school-age children who can't log on to the internet at home. If you're a woman, you are 23% less likely to have access to the internet than men. 75% of students are still not able to access remote learning, and most of that is in rural areas and belongs to some of the poorest households and poorest countries around the globe. So we have much work to do. Obviously, many countries have recognized this and they've embraced the importance of closing the digital divide. There's various investments globally from governments, the private and public sector, including making precious spectrum available, including the 6 gigahertz. Unfortunately, the digital divide is often closer than you think. Even in developed countries like the US, there's still many places that are very underserved or unserved. So we cannot forget or dismiss the other half of what World Wi-Fi Day is, and that's all about the charter to connect the unconnected. We have a simple belief. We believe that with Wi-Fi, again, being the most affordable way to mobilize the internet, it drives knowledge. Knowledge drives intellectual firepower. Intellectual firepower drives prosperity. Next slide, please. So again, I just want to thank everyone. This is a very special day. I want to thank everyone for all that you do personally to drive the accomplishments and the acceleration of Wi-Fi across the globe. But also I want to thank you for your perseverance and recognition that our work is not done. We've got much more to do. Thank you and happy World Wi-Fi Day.
Thank you. I think I haven't met anybody who managed to coin a day for themselves, and now it's good to know that you are the person behind World Wi-Fi Day. It's awesome, and I understand how Wi-Fi binds us together. We have passion for this technology and what the kind of impact it can get. And really, thank you for thinking of this, so we can all come together.
It's changing the world. Thank you.
It's changing the world, really. Thank you. We'll go to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Klaus Herding, CEO and chairman of Wi-Fi Now. A well-known Wi-Fi evangelist, consultant, blogger, journalist, analyst, and TV host, Klaus has worked in the wireless and mobile industries for over 20 years as a business strategist, technology and connectivity consultant, and technology architect. He founded Wi-Fi Now in 2016 and has earlier worked for numerous global tech leaders, including Nokia. Welcome, Klaus.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me out there.
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Very good. Thank you, first of all, Manohar, thank you for the nice introduction. And happy World Wi-Fi Day, everybody out there. It's great to be here. And in fact, I was going to wear my shades, my sunglasses for this, my 10 minutes here, just to show everybody that the future of Wi-Fi is bright. Unfortunately, I forgot them. So I can't do that. I have a few props like this hat and stuff. I'll tell you about those later. But anyway, it's great to be here. Happy World Wi-Fi Day. And thank you so much to the Broadband India Forum for inviting me. I'm in amazing company here. I can tell from the very distinguished speakers. So I'm honored to be here. And I just want to make a few, I think, simple remarks. And I don't know if you know this, but last month, Wi-Fi Now, aka Wi-Fi World Congress, held our first in-person event in Cancun, Mexico for nearly 2 years. I just want to say we had a fantastic time there. We shared amazing information via our partners and our speakers, and especially also the local folks made a huge contribution. But I think my number one learning or experience from doing a Wi-Fi event, a major event for the first time in Latin America, by the way, is that Wi-Fi is the same everywhere in the sense that it generates the same passion. It offers tremendous opportunity, even at the grassroots level, reaching all the way up to the very large service provider level. It is indeed universal, not just the technology itself, but also people's approach to the technology and what it can be used for. That's one of the most beautiful things about Wi-Fi technology. One of the reasons why I got involved is that its broad applicability, the fact that everybody can really get involved if they want to. So this is fantastic. I wanted to mention that. The other thing I want to say is just a quick word about spectrum. One of the reasons why we had such a successful event in Mexico is also because of the larger, if you like, trends in the industry right now. The momentum in the industry is towards more spectrum, especially in the 6 gigahertz band. A lot of the Latin American countries have already jumped on that bandwagon. Many of them have already chosen 1.2, the full 1.2 gigahertz of new spectrum. for Wi-Fi to regulate to that end. And that means the momentum for Wi-Fi for these countries is tremendous. I mention this because in India, of course, this is not decided yet, but we have, I've also been involved in other events also with Broadband India Forum, discussing spectrum, new Wi-Fi spectrum for India. It is so important, so critical for productivity, for socioeconomic growth, that India also it finds its way and makes the right decision for full spectrum 6 gigahertz. It's going to make a huge difference. And let me just say this about what just happened last week. This is very important. The first Wi-Fi 7 router ever was released by a company called H3C, based on Qualcomm chipset. I think I can say that. I think that's official. And that means we're already into the age. Believe it, I can tell you, I was not expecting this. I did not think it was going to happen this soon, but we're into the age of Wi-Fi 7. This is a huge deal for a number of reasons, because with Wi-Fi 7 and 6E as well, of course, but specifically with Wi-Fi 7, spectrum becomes the alpha and omega of performance. If you can allocate or regulate so that the full 6 gigahertz band is available, Wi-Fi 7 will come to its full expression as a paradigm shift in connectivity. This is very, very important. One of the things, and this is a slightly finer point, but I think something that we really need to understand as an industry and broadly going forward as far as Wi-Fi is concerned. We can now, with the technology that we have, the spectrum that we have, but specifically with the technology that we have also for Wi-Fi 7, we can now produce the same connectivity quality, call it quality of experience, call it quality of service, SLAs, so forth, that a licensed band can produce. Why? It's because we have now introduced redundancy in the data streams with something called MLO. We have now introduced puncturing, which can carve out parts of the spectrum that is encumbered by interference. These technologies and more will make sure that there will be no discernible difference between Wi-Fi services running on unlicensed Wi-Fi spectrum and services running on licensed spectrum. I very strongly believe, and this is a very important point, so remember this, we're entering a new paradigm of connectivity on unlicensed bands. All right, I want to say also just one more thing about India, if I didn't say it at the beginning. We have a big space in our hearts for everything Indian. We work with a lot of Indian companies as our clients and our partners. We want you to be successful. We want to support you as much as we can. And Broadband India Forum, please invite me back for these things. I absolutely love speaking to you guys. And I really, fingers crossed, and hope everything goes right for India, for spectrum in India, and for the Wi-Fi industry in India. I mean, a big chunk of Wi-Fi technology these days is developed in India. It's very important for Indian businesses and socioeconomic growth in India in that sense as well, right? So I hope you recognize that, all you Indians out there. All right. Last thing I want to say is the reason why I'm wearing this hat. It is because I'm going to make a shameless plug. I apologize, but I have to do it. The Wi-Fi World Congress is going to Sweden. Yes, Sweden, right? Sweden, this is their flag. Okay, we have flags. This is the Swedish flag, not the Ukrainian. No, the Swedish. Here's the Swedish hat with flag. We're going to, and by the way, Sweden is the home of IKEA, also the home of ABBA. Yes, and we're taking everybody to the ABBA Museum in Stockholm on September 27th in connection with the Wi-Fi World Congress. No restrictions in Sweden. Everybody is welcome. It's a fantastic place to visit, and we have amazing speakers and guests for our World Wi-Fi Conference program in Sweden this September 26th to 28th. Go to wifinowglobal.com. You'll get all that information. Last thing I want to say, people, remember to really have fun. I can tell you in this office, every day we think of ways of having fun, because we have been miserable for 2 years now, and we've had this is enough. So we're enjoying ourselves. We're trying to do crazy stuff to market our Sweden event. We're also, of course, doing a lot of serious things with our clients and all of that. But remember to have fun, folks, especially on World Wi-Fi Day. Go have fun and just be happy that we've got this amazing technology working for all of us, and we're going to do even more with it in the future. All right. Thank you so much, Manohar, and thank you to Mr. Ramachandran. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the presentations today.
Thank you, Klaus. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. Your talk made us reminded us again that we are celebrating today. On a high energy. Thank you very much. Yes, and
Celebrating.
And also I think you brought out a very important point, that why everybody is so passionate about Wi-Fi is all the complexity is hidden under the hoods. All the complex things which Dorothy and team put stuff together is hidden, and it's very easy for everybody to use Wi-Fi and have that amazing experience. You're talking about, in India, the thing unlicensed Wi-Fi services is way already better than the services. So you can imagine with increased spectrum, more can be had. I'm sure Broadband India Forum, led by TV Service, we are hoping, we have made presentations and advocacy for taking additional spectrum. We hope something will happen soon. I'm sure we'll catch up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, so important. And it's so interesting that you say that, right? Because what happens with Wi-Fi, it opens up for opportunity, right? And as I said, this is universal. This is in Latin America, in India, everywhere. But the spectrum is the fuel that you have to pour on the fire to make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you. Thanks. Bye.
Our next speaker is our esteemed Mr. TV Ramachandran, President, Broadband India Forum. I really think it's hard, it's not necessary to really introduce him, but let's go with what is due. In the discussions prior to the start of this, we were referring to TV as the doyen of our industry, and it really nobody else really merits that moniker more. I'll just go through this very quickly. President, Broadband India Forum, an esteemed industry veteran. TV has been part of the mobile telephony sector in India since its very inception, as the first CEO of Sterling Cellular Delhi, and having established and led COAI for 12 years. He's also honorary fellow of IET London and global advisory member of the IET Future Tech Panel. But more importantly, TV is such a wonderful and warm person that everybody in the industry connects to him in a very, very nice way. Over to you, TV sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Manohar, for the very nice introduction. And at the outset, let me wish a very happy World Wi-Fi Day to all of you. And firstly, extend a warm welcome to our honorable chief guest, our beloved Dr. P.D. Waghela, chairman of TRAI, who is in a way the father of Wi-Fi in India. Our special guest of honor, Shri Yaduvendra Mathur, former special secretary in Niti Aayog, and now vice chairman of the Consulting Engineers Group Limited of India. And to our great pride and delight, I would like to say that he is now one of our honorary principal advisors of BIF. Our esteemed expert speakers, Mr. J.R. Wilson, Chairman, Wireless Broadband Alliance, Ms. Dr. Dorothy Stanley, Chair 802.11 IEEE, Mr. Klaus Hetting, CEO and Chairman, Wi-Fi Now, Mr. C.S. Rao, Chairman and co-founder, QuadGen Wireless Solutions, Mr. Manohar Raja, of course, Chairman of our Wi-Fi Committee, and Mr. Rajat Mukherjee and my other colleagues from BIF Directorate and membership. All esteemed guest attendees, the government, industry, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given a time of 5 minutes to talk about the importance of Wi-Fi in India. I think our expert speakers have given some exciting, tantalizing visions of what all Wi-Fi can do, whether it is Dorothy or Mr. Wilson or Mr. Hetting. And I don't have the competence to say something more than that. But I will talk about the importance of Wi-Fi pertaining to India. See, in India, we are at a very, very great position. We are at practically at ground zero position on Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi hotspots connectivity. And that's very important for our connectivity, as you all know. In fact, I would, Mr. Wilson talked about how he was associated with the formation of the World Wi-Fi Day. Mr. Hetting also added to the conversation on that. I would like to suggest one more perspective to Mr. Wilson. See, yesterday was the World Father's Day. And it's very appropriate that the World Wi-Fi Day is coming next to it, being the father of connectivity. So I think we all should celebrate this with redoubled vigor. In India, the penetration of public Wi-Fi is at a rather low level. And we see that as a huge opportunity. From BIF, we are completely committed to that, to the growth and proliferation of Wi-Fi. And we think that is absolutely essential to meet the national goal of broadband for all. While we are predominantly a mobile-first country, and rightly so, it has connected everybody. But to get to the next stage in terms of ability to use the full appetite of 4G, for example, 4G, the latest speed report says that Indian average 4G speed is about 14 Mbps India, and that's about half the world or less. And one of the reasons for that, powerful reasons for that, is Wi-Fi is not there in adequate measure to support mobile networks. If we had enough public Wi-Fi hotspots, I'm sure our speeds would double up, because even in India, the data available shows that our Wi-Fi speeds are hovering around 28 to 30 megahertz, whereas our mobile speeds are at about 14. So that itself tells you that we could double our utilization of whatever technology we have, 4G or whatever. So the need for Wi-Fi, the importance of Wi-Fi cannot be overstated. At the same time, in India, a big feature is the awareness of public Wi-Fi importance is not very widespread. It's very surprising, but it's not really such a surprise if you think of the background of the last 20 years, where we had no real experience encounter for the public with Wi-Fi. They were used to only connectivity through the operators, network operators. So they think now that Wi-Fi as a device is only one thing, which is a private property, not a public connectivity. We have to change that perspective, and BIF is totally committed to that. In fact, we are running a massive program called BIFCA, BIF Connectivity Action Program, and that is primary purpose is to generate more awareness of the importance of public Wi-Fi, what it can do for the public, the host of important things, not only for today, as Dorothy showed, what it can do in terms of future, say whether it is 6E, which is also available today in the world, or Wi-Fi 7, where the first router has been already launched. So we are in a very, very exciting age on Wi-Fi possibilities. And whatever be the importance of Wi-Fi globally, you can take it for granted. For India, it is multiplied several fold, because our usage, our spread of connectivity is rather low. Our household penetration of connective broadband is rather low, and government is committed to increase that. We've got only about 20 million wireline broadband connections. And even if you assume they represent 20 million households, that is a very low level of penetration in India. For an average of about 4 persons per household, we've got a huge number of households to connect. And Wi-Fi represents a great opportunity there. along with the fixed line. See, I will not go on more about the importance of Wi-Fi. The fact is, for India, it's a great opportunity. We would like all our partners to come in to meet the NDCP, which is our official target policy of 10 million public Wi-Fi hotspots by 22. End of 2022, we should have 10 million. And this can represent a huge opportunity for all players, domestic and foreign. And we invite everybody to come in with us in this committed program of BIF to develop Wi-Fi. We are very happy to have our great partners with us here today, our knowledge partner, IEEE, our supporting partners, WBA and Wi-Fi Alliance, and our events partner, Bharat Exhibitions. We are all together in this because we think that this will generate excellent demand and scope for local manufacture and exports. And I would say that without adequate penetration of public Wi-Fi, we would not even be able to taste the beauties of 5G. We need even more download capacity with 5G than with 4G. So we better move fast on this. With these few words on the importance of public Wi-Fi, I am now truly honored to introduce our special guest of honor, Shri Yaduvendra Mathur, Vice Chairman, Consulting Engineers Group Limited and Principal Advisor, BIF. While he is known to all, I will take the special privilege of introducing him briefly to this August gathering. I'm sorry about it. A former Special Secretary at Niti Aayog, Mr. Mathur is an IAS officer of the 1986 batch who has served in various positions in the Finance Department. In the government of Rajasthan, he has served as Principal Secretary Finance, Energy Secretary, Planning Secretary, PhD Secretary, and DG Revenue Intelligence. Prior to joining Niti Aayog, he has worked as CMD of Exim Bank, Chairman of Indira Gandhi Canal Board, and as MD of Textile Mill in Bhilwara. He was also in ACC before joining the IRS in 1984. Above all this, I would also like to add a personal touch in this. Many of you would not even believe it. Mr. Mathur, as Secretary in Niti Aayog, was one of the first to take up the cause of Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi. I still remember his inviting me to make a presentation to him in his office, in his chamber, in Niti Aayog, about what Wi-Fi can do for India, for rural and urban sector. Mr. Mathur, you have been a champion of this all these years, I know, and it is indeed a great honor to have you here today to speak on this World Wi-Fi Day. I request you to share your valued views on this great topic, and the floor is yours, Mr. Mathur.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and it's actually a real privilege and a pleasure, and it's I'm really honored to be part of this very strong Broadband India Forum, and I welcome Dr. P.D. Waghela, the esteemed chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority. I am proud that we train together. We are batchmates, and now leadership is in his strong hands. And I did have a brief interaction with him a couple of weeks ago, and it is I think they're in very, very strong and safe hands. And I have no doubt, Mr. Ramchandran, that India is in extremely competent hands to take this Wi-Fi revolution to its next level. Distinguished Dorothy Stanley, Chair, IEEE, and Mr. G.R. Wilson, President of the Wireless Broadband Alliance. It's a privilege and an honor to listen to you, and Mr. Klaus Hetting, Sweden is a great country, and we really look forward. We grew up listening to ABBA. When you showed the ABBA banner, it was pure magic. Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, the Distinguished Director General. I did not know till a few weeks ago about today being the Wi-Fi day, and I did read up a little bit. But truly, this is transformative for the world. And as we go forward, I think the underlying infrastructure, the technology is going to really leverage AI and other emerging areas for a truly digital world. India, we are very proud, did have very early strategy for rolling out public Wi-Fi's, and the TRAI many years ago, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, had come out with a paper, but for some strange reason, it was not kind of taken to its next logical step. And the telcos, unfortunately, was seen as pushing back. And that is when I and Niti Aayog, we were reading up and we were reviewing about the progress of BharatNet and the allied issues. And Niti Aayog is also on the telecom commission. So, really the interest was there, and the rollout of public Wi-Fi's definitely has been rather slow. But now with the PM WANI model promising to unbundle, and the number of Wi-Fi spots really going to go up, public Wi-Fi spots, I think one of the key challenges is for the state governments and the other utilities to support the rollout of public Wi-Fi by permitting, facilitating easier right of way. And I think that is one area where Chairman TRAI, I think we will hear from him. And I can share that in Rajasthan, the state where I am right now, had hiked up the rates for use of street furniture for rollout of cable and other connectivities, including the fiber. And I think that is one area where things are happening, and we will see very quick traction. The government's BharatNet project to collect all the 2.5 lakh Gram Panchayats has also now picked up speed, but I wish that we could really push that further and bring in the disruptions on a trusted device, so that there is more seamless connectivity available in the rural areas. So something more has to happen in that area. Rapid advancements in the SATCOM and the policy framework in India is now very fertile, and I'm sure that is the next generation. It will also enhance and will provide higher capability for the Wi-Fi backhaul at those locations in the country that are relevant in the present pandemic kind of scenario where they can't reach out. And this is the path forward to full rollout of 5G. On the E and V bands also, which help the backhaul for commercial Wi-Fi infrastructure, especially in dense urban locations where laying of optic fiber for the last mile is not possible. I think the V bands 57, 64 gigahertz has unique technical capabilities for high absorptions across 86%. The band, coupled with low coverage and high frequency, this also makes for high gigabit capacity Wi-Fi, both point-to-point and point-to-multi-point link configurations. Proliferations of Wi-Fi gig hotspots with wider channels than standard Wi-Fi's and significantly faster data speeds could especially beneficial to the local MSEs. The importance of delicensing 6 gigahertz band in India for Wi-Fi based applications, though we note that the government has initiated steps for releasing more licensed spectrum and introducing spectrum trading and sharing. Availability of more unlicensed spectrum could really help improve the quality of service of the mobile networks by enhancing high capacity downloads on the networks, thereby freeing up precious license spectrum for other users. Now, this will really this will usher in superior Wi-Fi technologies, like was being mentioned by President, and we hear about the Wi-Fi 7 router being released recently. Ultimately, the quality of experience for the common customer, the Aam Aadmi, that is the center stage. How does it impact common man, his quality of life, his ease of living? I think that is the overarching concern, even when we talk about public Wi-Fi's, the passion with which I think many of us are concerned. We need hundreds and millions of public Wi-Fi's, and that will really lead to, industrial IoTs and private networks complementing, even new radio license band. I think the future beckons, and India, I'm sure, will take a strong resolve today. Again, like on literally every day, we all resolve to make this world a better place. I'm really honored and this distinguished, knowledgeable gathering. I once again thank the President and BIF for giving me this opportunity. There's so much to learn. Like Dr. P.D. Waghela mentioned, great humility. He's an outstanding professional who's really ahead of the curve already, and we would love to listen to PD, to your vision, and you impact all of us day on day. So I'm sure that with your guidance and anything that you think the Broadband India Forum, I'm proud to be a part of this family. And when I met you that day, I had not been offered this position. So, but when I was exchanging notes with Mr. Ramachandran, that I had met Mr. Waghela, he said, "Hey, why don't you join us as an advisor, honorary advisor?" I said, "I'll be delighted." So thank you once again, and best wishes to everybody on this World Wi-Fi. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur. That was very interesting and motivating. It's always such a pleasure to hear from you. And like I said, you are one of the first to give a boost to me in the drive for Wi-Fi. Personally, I can't thank you enough for the various motivating sessions I've had with you in your earlier role. And today it's really a big, big honor for us to have you with us as one of our most honored advisors. Thank you, sir. I now have the proud privilege of briefly introducing our chief guest for the evening, Dr. P.D. Waghela, chairman of the TRAI. As many of you know, Dr. Waghela is an IAS officer of the 1986 batch, just like Mr. Mathur, and he has served earlier in various important roles, including Secretary, Department of Pharmaceuticals, in Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Chairman of Kandla Port Trust, Chief Commissioner of Sales Tax in Gujarat. He was also convener of the Empowered Group 3. We all know that very famously, which handled the availability of critical medical supplies like PPE, N95, ventilators, and testing kits being exported globally by India. So this became a very famous group at that time. A key member of the GST Implementation Committee, he was honored with the Prime Minister of India for excellence in public administration and for his contribution in this area. Sir, it's indeed a great, great privilege to have you here with us today and to hear you on the vital topic of Wi-Fi. Like I said, the TRAI and you are fathers of connectivity and Wi-Fi. What you're doing for the common man, what Mr. Mathur said, is absolutely basic and fundamental. If it cannot help the common man, if it cannot make broadband for all, no connectivity is important. And only that is possible only through ubiquitous Wi-Fi, through more and more of proliferated public Wi-Fi. So we are very committed to work in this area, sir, to serve the nation's interests. And we look forward to your talk on this to lead us on. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And I think good morning to TV Ramchandran and who else? Anyway, esteemed panelist, TV Ramchandran, President Broadband India Forum. My friend, my batchmate, Sri Yaduvendra Mathur, I'm very pleased to see you here as Vice Chairman of Consulting Engineers Group Limited and as Principal Advisor BIF. Ms. Dorothy Stanley, thank you very much for enlightening us with the kind of new research which is going on at IEEE 802.11 and the kind of information as you gave us about the new technologies. Mr. J.R. Wilson, President Wireless Broadband Alliance, Mr. Klaus Hetting, CEO Wi-Fi Now, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, Director General Broadband India Forum, K. Manohar Raja, Executive Director RailTel, C.S. Rao, Chairman Vodjan Wireless Solutions, distinguished delegates and participants, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank Broadband India Forum for organizing this special event on the occasion of the World Wi-Fi Day and for inviting me over to deliver the keynote address. I also wish to take this opportunity to wish each one of you a very, very happy World Wi-Fi Day. The Indian broadband landscape started expanding by the year, end of 2016 with the introduction of 4G LTE broadband, mobile broadband, and hence there has been no looking back since then. The surge in India data usage is continuing since then and has risen from mere 0.3 gigabyte per user per month in 2016 to now almost 15 to 17 gigabyte per user per month. India now has approximately 800 million broadband connections and appetite for data-rich services appears to be growing further. India's data usage has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 53% in the last 5 years. With induction of 5G services, another big surge in data usage is around the corner. With technologies like Industry 4.0, 5G broadcast, artificial intelligence, AR, VR, M2M, and robotics, the data usage will grow exponentially. And one of the studies has found that in 6 leading 5G countries, that is South Korea, UK, USA, Japan, Australia, and Germany, that the smartphone users on average consume between 2.7 and 1.7 times more mobile data after introduction of 5G as compared to 4G. And this is only the beginning of 5G implementation. Usage was greatest in South Korea, where the smartphone users reached 38.1 gigabyte of mobile data used. One reason may be the excellent rollout of 5G infrastructure in the country. In all the 6 markets, 5G users on average consumed more than 15 gigabyte of mobile data. That already, India is already consuming more than 15 gigabyte. As per a report by Ericsson, India may have 330 million 5G subscribers by 2026, and data usage may reach 40 gigabyte per smartphone, which I consider, considering the new kind technologies like 5G broadcast and and a lot of things happening on the front of entertainment. The actual usage may be much higher. And why 5G is important in all this? I consider that 5G technology, and it has actually played an unprecedented role in connecting and making the world, and especially India, mobile for almost 2.5 decades of its existence. And the advantages of Wi-Fi in terms of ease of operation, ease of maintenance, lower cost, and ubiquitous availability have made it one of the most commonly used, dynamic, and ever-evolving technologies. It has revolutionized the broadband landscape all over the world. Contribution of Wi-Fi in reducing digital divide cannot be overemphasized. It has been told by my previous speakers. Despite the ever-increasing capacity of mobile broadband, the insatiable demand for data has always exceeded what technology can supply and meet. As the new generation mobile technologies move to a higher spectrum band, they will be able to support high capacity, but will have poor indoor penetration. Wi-Fi is the best companion of mobile broadband when it comes to offloading mobile traffic in a highly congested area or providing services where mobile signals cannot penetrate. With increasing trend of working from home, or rather, I prefer to call, working from anywhere, WFA, and Wi-Fi will become an integral part of any in-building solution or another word I have coined is that public space solution, PSS. This will further boost the importance of Wi-Fi as a last mile technology solution. Keeping in mind the constraints of the mobile spectrum and network infrastructure, we need to have a complementary framework of Wi-Fi, including public Wi-Fi. Worldwide, Wi-Fi, especially public Wi-Fi, has emerged as one of the most successful means of enhancing broadband connectivity and proliferation. As per the Cisco Virtual Network Index study, it is expected that 59% of the mobile data traffic globally will be offloaded to Wi-Fi by 2022. 2020 is already, I think, they will be over by December. So we'll come to know exactly what is the real figure. So there is a tremendous opportunity in India for the proliferation of public Wi-Fi hotspots. And Mr. T.V. Ramchandran has very rightly told, and even Mathur has brought out this thing, that in India, the public Wi-Fi proliferation should have happened much earlier. As per the published report of iPass, our penetration of public Wi-Fi hotspot in India is less than 1%. As per data provided to TRAI in India, now we have started publishing, public Wi-Fi hotspots reports first time. So there are around about 0.1 million public hotspots, at present, against a population of 1.4 billion. Around 500,000 access points are installed at these public Wi-Fi hotspots, which were accessed by around just 5.4 million unique users in the month of February this year, that is February 2022. On the other hand, compare global figures. Global estimate of public hotspots is 549 million as per a report published in Statista. Comparing it with global penetration in use, one can have no doubt about the growth prospects of Wi-Fi in India, especially in Wi-Fi penetration. The public Wi-Fi can benefit the public, the economy, and the nation, especially those who are digitally excluded. They can be easily excluded and they can have the broadband connectivity through Wi-Fi. Realizing this, the National Digital Communication Policy 2018 has set a goal of 10 million public Wi-Fi hotspots by 2022. And however, we are way behind these targets. TRAI has always been conscious of the need to promote Wi-Fi in India. As mentioned by Mr. Ramchandran, I would like to remind you that it was based on TRAI's recommendation of April 2004 that bands 2.4 and 5, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz were delicensed. That led to development of Wi-Fi access technology for broadband in India. Again, in March 2017, TRAI gave recommendation to the government for proliferation of broadband through public Wi-Fi networks. Through this recommendation, an unbundled and distribution model for delivery of broadband services through public Wi-Fi network was recommended. A new framework for providing Wi-Fi through public data office and public data office aggregators was recommended. Later, based on this concept, PM Vani was launched by the government last year in 2021. And PM Vani Yojana lays down a roadmap for achieving the Propel India mission of NBCP policy. PM Vani strategized to catalyze investments, innovation, and ease of doing business by promoting open public Wi-Fi access through Wi-Fi, PDOS, and PDOs. The involvement of small entities like Kirana and Pan shops for hosting Wi-Fi access points to provide broadband connectivity in areas that are still uncovered from the cellular coverage has great prospects. PM Vani, however, has not made desired progress, maybe due to competition with cheap mobile data, or maybe due to slow development of collaborative business module, or as Mr. T.V. Ramchandran says, there is a need to create more public awareness. Another area of interest is the role that can be played by satellite communications and Wi-Fi together. Satellite communication can also provide much needed medium for backhauling traffic from Wi-Fi hotspots. TRAI has made recommendation in this regard to the government for facilitating use of VSAT-based networks for backhauling both cellular and Wi-Fi traffic. Yajundra, I would like to inform you that the government has already accepted and implemented this recommendation. And TRAI, in its recommendation proliferation of broadband through public Wi-Fi networks of 2017, has also recommended that a clarification be provided in respect of all licensing categories, that sharing of infrastructure related to Wi-Fi equipment such as Wi-Fi router, access points, backhaul, and also be allowed. I am glad that DOT has issued amendment in this regard also. We have very recently, have requested DOT to bring parity between different licenses and authorities under a unified license as far as active and passive infrastructure sharing is concerned. I think many people have mentioned about BharatNet program, excellent and very ambitious, the program. Again, this was based on idea mooted by TRAI. It envisages establishment and management of high-speed broadband infrastructure in all local bodies and includes provisioning of last mile connectivity in all the village local bodies and the villages using Wi-Fi hotspots. Under the program, Wi-Fi hotspots have been installed in 104,000 village local bodies, and of which almost 50,000 bodies are already activated. I'm sure that this work will pick up in the coming months. In PPP mode, that is what government has now desired, that the BharatNet will be given out on PPP mode. I think then I think Wi-Fi hotspot penetration in the village will certainly increase as the private enterprises they take over this project. So going forward, the expected arrival of the next generation Wi-Fi 6 will further reinforce the need for a robust public Wi-Fi network in the country. A robust public Wi-Fi network will help deliver extremely high capacity, high speed, and highly secure broadband services to consumer by synergizing with the PM-WANI model. The Wi-Fi 6E will be many times faster than the current Wi-Fi standard and will offer better performance for every megahertz of spectrum. Besides, Wi-Fi 7 is also lurking on the horizon, which is likely to increase data download speeds up to 10 gigabytes per second and provide latencies of less than 1 millisecond. This would really help complement 5G technologies and improve the overall quality of service. If we want to meet the future capacity requirement of users, increase the spectrum availability of current and future generation of Wi-Fi is an essential precondition. I am glad that last week government has, based on TRAI recommendation, started auction of spectrum, which will be completed by the end of July 2022. The auction will be held for spectrum various low bands and medium bands and high frequency bands. It is expected that the mid and high band spectrum will be utilized by telecom providers to roll out 5G technology-based services capable of providing speed and capacity that would be 10 times higher than what is possible through current 4G services. It is important that spectrum which supports higher speed Wi-Fi technology will be required to be made available in India. If you want to leverage the combined power of mobile and Wi-Fi technology to improve our digital infrastructure, to increase digital inclusion, and to bring us to the world level, telecom companies and Wi-Fi providers have to start working together collaboratively and develop innovative business models which are win-win for both as well as for the consumers. Globally, interesting developments are happening in this pole. The Open Roaming platform was launched in May 2020 as a global solution based on common set of standards to bridge gap between cellular and Wi-Fi. This offers users seamless connectivity when they roam between guest Wi-Fi networks and public Wi-Fi hotspots, as well as from cellular to Wi-Fi. Open roaming was initially developed by Cisco and later was taken over by the Wireless Broadband Alliance. As of May 2022, this platform has passed 1 million hotspots mark globally. There is another pass point, Hotspot 2.0 protocol has been developed by Wi-Fi Alliance, which enables mobile devices to discover and authenticate Wi-Fi hotspots that provide internet access. Google's Wi-Fi Orion project is slowly gaining traction in USA. Here, Wi-Fi providers and mobile network owners can be different, and mobile operators pays to Wi-Fi provider for providing services to customers. Data consumed through Wi-Fi is deducted from the data balance of the consumers. Google Orion acts as an aggregator and mediator between the third-party Wi-Fi providers and the MNO, that is telecom operators. I'm told that there are similar models being developed in India too. It will be interesting to see which of these models and developments gain traction in India. I'm sure that telecom companies and Wi-Fi providers will also collaborate in India the way it is happening elsewhere in the world. I will conclude by saying that to deliver true broadband for all and to achieve the goal of digital inclusion, and that completely digital inclusion. When I say digital inclusion, I mean that the person, the last person on the ground should be able to take part in the economic activities which are now increasingly being taken place on the digital platforms. And This public Wi-Fi, it can be, very, 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 very useful to deliver affordable, qualitative, and ubiquitous broadband. Several recommendations try related to, I have already mentioned, I will not say, these, many of them have been, implemented. And this will help further proliferation of Wi-Fi in remote and rural areas. And DCB policy also talks of promoting Wi-Fi in the country. I'm sure the telecom service providers and Wi-Fi hotspot providers will collaborate and develop India-specific models to realize the full potential of Wi-Fi in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manohar Raja?
Yes, TV. Thank you, sir, for the very, very enlightening talk. You covered all the topics. We are very hopeful and very confident now that we are going on the right track. I think the spectrum allocation for Wi-Fi 6 and 6E would be a principal thing, which really can put us on the right path. So I think we had a very interesting set of discussions. I now invite Dr. C.S. Rao, Chairman and co-founder of Quadgen Wireless Solutions Private Limited, to propose the vote of thanks. Dr. Rao is former president and CEO of Lucent India. He has a distinguished career in telecom. In addition to holding executive positions with BT India, Intel India, Tel Labs India, CDOT, and Reliance Communication, he was also a president of OSPI, chairman of WiMAX Forum India, and former chairman of ASSOCHAM Telecom Committee. Over to you, Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Manohar. Thank you, Manohar. Sir, Dr. Waghela, Mr. Yaduvendra Mathur, my dear friend, Mr. T.V. Ramchandran, Rajat, Mr. Klaus Hetting, and Mr. Wilson and Dorothy. It's a pleasure to be talking today on the World Wi-Fi Day, and happy World Wi-Fi Day to everybody who has been experiencing hyper connectivity enabled by Wi-Fi, as has been eloquently talked about by Mr. Waghela and also Mr. Yaduvendra Mathur. Thanks to IEEE for having the digital foundational role of evolving a societally impacting standards for Wi-Fi technology with its revolutionary trends, right from 802.11 branding, from alphabet 802.11a, and they ran out of all the letters up to 802.11az. And they are now going from Wi-Fi 1 to Wi-Fi 7, maybe into Wi-Fi 8 with 802.be, and maybe they will very soon run out of BZ also. So in the process, Wi-Fi is made very deterministic in terms of quality of experience and throughputs that one can get. It's a significant development. I have been fortunate enough to be associated as a Bell Labs fellow and also with Intel, having been able to embed the Wi-Fi into the laptops and also WiMAX earlier. So the technological revolution has been quite complex, but made very simple by IEEE and also the current generation of engineers, brainy hardware and software engineers. Most of them are also Indian, contributing all the way from 1897, when Professor Jagdish Chandra Bose invented 60 gigahertz wireless, which is considered as a broad Wi-Fi technology. And it is now seeing the current era of wireless in unlicensed spectrum, which we call it as a E-band. So the IEEE, we are proud to having invented this. We are proud of Professor Jagdish Chandra Bose, a proud Indian son. And IEEE has thus also honored him as one of the fathers of radio science. Interestingly, Wi-Fi is the fundamental pillar of pioneering technology, radio-based technology, stimulating airborne internet, mobile internet, and wireless broadband, whichever way you call it. The pillars of Wi-Fi technology of MIMO, OFDM, wide RF channel, and higher order QAM were all there, invented long ago and made the foundational thing well ahead of 3GPP and in 3GPP inventions. And this has dominated the mobile broadband right from those days. even before GPRS, WCDMA, LTE, and now 5G. So Broadband India Forum thanks academia and industry to have realized the fundamental belief in these Wi-Fi inventions driven by the MIMO, father of MIMO, who is another proud Indian son, Professor Aragaswamy Paulraj of Stanford University, who has also been inducted because MIMO is such a general purpose technology. He has been inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame of USA. And we are all proud of his contribution to the Wi-Fi. I thought I would like to recall his contribution on this forum today. Wi-Fi's now, the Wi-Fi Now's class hitting has evolved as a mission-oriented, passion-oriented, and obsession-oriented brand ambassador for global Wi-Fi industry, as we have seen today with his very active involvement, alongside the Wi-Fi Alliance and WBA, which I also came to know, like Manohar Raja has mentioned, about the Wi-Fi Day being designated as a Wi-Fi Day by Mr. J.R. Wilson of AT&T. Thank you, my friend Wilson. I was a part of the AT&T and Bell Labs and Lucent, and BIF and myself convey our sincere thanks for Klaus and Wilson for their time today amongst us in India. Thanks, Dorothy, for being a person having driven the IEEE to this level. Our sincere thanks to TRA chairman and our leader of the telecom industry in India. And without him, the BIF would not have been so passionate to promote the cause of Wi-Fi, which you see constantly through TVR's advocacy. And we had the best support, sir, from TRAI to the Wi-Fi industry in general and technology advocacy of Wi-Fi through setting a goal of 10 million hotspots in 2022, even though we are far from it. And our sincere thanks to you, sir, for your valuable time and very eloquent address. Similarly, BIF has had the best professional objective with technology neutral, OEM neutral, and telco neutral interactions with our industry leaders, alongside DOT, DOT secretary also has been promoting and acting as a catalyst to the growth of Wi-Fi hotspot establishment through PM Vani scheme to promote the Wi-Fi to be there in indoor, outdoor venues, malls, campuses, stadiums, hotels, restaurants, what have you. BIF thanks the DOT leadership and all officers of DOT. Just one small point I wanted to bring in a recent IPL event, sir, of a 4 hour to 5 hours. The data throughput has been found to be 15 terabytes of downlink and uplink for 50,000 users. And this translates to a 2 Tbps per square kilometer per hour of area throughput, sir. This is an interesting statistics for you to know. And it's a long way. It's a long way from minutes era that we have seen, where TV has come from sterling cellular of minutes era to megabytes era to terabyte era now today. BIF thanks Indian youth and consumers for their adoption of Wi-Fi service, and Wi-Fi offload traffic from 2G era to the 5G era will continue to increase from 20% to 75% as the statistics are showing, sir. In a country like India, Wi-Fi Alliance and WBA have predicted that Wi-Fi will have an impact of 130 billion to 150 billion by 2025, and hope India's wireless world will have its true DNA, devices, networks, and applications driven by this exciting, promising, innovative, and evolving digital transformation-based Wi-Fi, contributing to the digital India and thus help digital democracy to be enabled. I still remember when I met Mr. Yaduvendra Madhu first time along with CV, where these two gentlemen have coined Wi-Fi and digital information highway is the concept on which these two gentlemen have launched it, along with the ADB of Japan. So BIF thanks again telcos, ISPs, everybody for their support to Wi-Fi. Our outdoor Wi-Fi, sir, as the TRA chairman has mentioned, sir, needs to be adopted as an extension to BharatNet, to rural broadband, as an enabler for the objectives of a bridge to digital divide, and Wi-Fi 6 in its 6 gigahertz band with 1200 megahertz and 6E with your support will be an extremely techno-commercial value and alternative to advanced applications for a NRU, unlicensed band, which is now stimulating the evolution of digital private networks. So thanks to DOT, TRAI, and industry as stakeholders to adopt and promote carrier-grade Wi-Fi in the next digital decade, sir. I think finally, I would like to thank all the participants, almost about 80 of them. 5G and Wi-Fi will continue to be complementary to each other, sir, as Mr. P.D. Waghela Saab had mentioned. Silicon majors like Intel, Broadcom, NXP, and Qualcomm will continue to support, in addition to supporting 4G, 5G. 3GPP and IEEE will coexist and co-work. Telcos, ISPs, and public-private networks will coexist and would continue to adopt Wi-Fi in a significant way. BIF thanks all the stakeholders, and contextual consumer IoT and Industry 4.0 usages will impact our societal lives, sir, needing Wi-Fi in its next generational versions of Wi-Fi 7 and Wi-Fi 8. Thank you once again. Thanks finally to BIF and Bharat Exhibitions and the passionate team of BIF. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for an excellent session today. This brings us to the end of today's Digital Dialogue. Look forward to seeing you again at the next session of the Digital Dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.